10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 128. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. This is episode 128. If you're brand new to the show, welcome in. We are so glad to have you here. And if you are a long-time listener, thank you so much for listening for all these weeks, months, and years. We really appreciate you. Before we get into the show, wanted to let you know that you can get a PDF to every single episode we've ever put out, all 128 episodes, by going over to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on the Patreon link, and becoming a supporter of the show for only $3 a month. We've had a lot of people come on board this week, and I just wanted to thank all of them for becoming a member of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson family. So we wanted to give a big shout out to all the people that have chosen to support us. Thank you to Jonathan, somebody named Geestmer. I'm sure that's just their username. Thank you to Neer, Volker, Charles, and Bob. Thank you so much to all of you folks who have signed up to support the show. You really are the ones that keep us going. If you want to become a member, again, just go to our website, click on one of the banners, and that will bring you right over to Patreon, where you can get signed up for less than a cup of coffee every single month. You get a whole bunch of value. So today we're going to be talking about an essential bebop device that's really going to get you into some chromaticism and learning how to do a specific thing that you see bebop musicians doing all the time. And actually, this episode and what is going to turn into a series of episodes is from one of our loyal and faithful listeners, Dean. Dean sent me an email. He said, I know what enclosures are, but I'm wondering how to actually use them, and he asked me to do a series on this, so I'm always happy to oblige a listener that reaches out and asks for a certain aspect of their playing that they're dealing with in real life. That's actually my favorite thing to do. So thanks for that question, Dean, and hopefully we can clear up some of this stuff. Today we're going to get into the basics, and then next week in a part 2, we are going to get a little bit deeper and show you some applications over actual tunes for this. Now, speaking of chromaticism, I've got one more thing to tell you about. If you're into these episodes on enclosures, you're trying to get a more bebop sound into your playing, we're going to be coming out with our brand new etude book called The Chromatic Way on the 20th of October. So if you are not on the mailing list, jump on the mailing list this week, and I'm going to be sending you a pretty substantial discount when you get your hands on that, when we release that. So keep your eyes peeled if you're already on the mailing list for an email from me with a nice discount code. Patreon members are going to be getting an even bigger discount code. So if you've been thinking about becoming a Patreon member, now is the time. You are going to get a lot of money off of our brand new ebook. But that's going to be launching on the 20th. And what that is 10 etudes based on chromaticism over some of the most standard chord progressions out there, and I think that's going to be of a huge benefit to all of you. It's going to come with play-alongs at 4 different tempos for each tune. It's just going to be an awesome tool to get your bebop and your chromatic playing together. All right, let's jump into today's episode. So if you've never heard of enclosures before, it's actually a pretty simple concept, but one that may be hard for you to actually put into practice because you just don't know where to start or how to work on this stuff. But enclosures are exactly what they sound like. We're picking a note and we're enclosing it with chromatic notes. And there are several degrees to which we can do this, but we're going to start with the most simple this week, and that's basically playing the chromatic note above the target note and the chromatic note below the target note, and then ultimately landing on the target note. So that is the first thing I want you to realize, is that you have to pick a target note when you're working on enclosures. Now, what we're going to be dealing with today is a simple major chord and a simple minor chord, and we're going to be discussing how we enclose these. So I suggest when you first get started, simply figure out how to enclose the chord tones, and not even all of the chord tones. Really, we're just going to be enclosing the triad, because those are really the clearest notes in the chord, and they'll start to wrap your ears around the sound of enclosures, and you're going to be able to hear that chord really, really clearly if you're simply enclosing 1, 3, and 5 on both a major and a minor chord. So if you take a peek at your PDF for this week, you'll notice that I've written out a really, really simple exercise, and then at the end of the day, what we're going to do is actually play this in every key. So what we're doing is we're taking the 3 target notes, root, third, and fifth, and we're going to surround them with 2 chromatic notes each. So if you look at, obviously, the root of a C major chord is C. So what we're going to be doing is taking a D flat and a B, playing those first, and then landing on our target note of C. Then we're going to go up to the third, which is an E. We're going to chromatically surround that. So we have an F and a D sharp, and then we land on E. And then we're going to be going up to the fifth and doing exactly the same thing. So we're going to be playing an A flat, then an F sharp, and then we're going to land on G. And then finally, I go back to the root to make this an even number. So again, we're going to be playing D flat, B to C. And we're going to do it in a 2/8 note, 1/4 note rhythmic pattern, because I think that our target note should get a little bit more emphasis. So we're going to hang out on our target note for a little bit longer. So we're playing 2/8 notes followed by a 1/4 note on the target note. This lines it up in a measure of 4/4 really, really nicely. It takes 2 measures to do the enclosures on every single note, and that's going to really lend itself to the exercise we're going to do after this. So check out what the single note enclosure, single chromatic note enclosure sounds like over a concert C major chord. So amidst all that chromaticism, you can really hear those target notes, and that target note is simply just outlining the triad. So this should be something that you can wrap your ears around rather quickly, in my opinion. But if it does take you a little bit longer, don't worry about it. Just keep at it, and you really start to hear this chromaticism going on. So over a minor chord, the only thing that changes is now we are enclosing the minor third. So we still go D flat, B, C on the root, but then on the third, we're going to actually play E natural, D to E flat, because that is our lowered third on a minor chord. The rest of it is exactly the same. We still play A flat, F sharp, G, and then we go back up to the root, D flat, B, C. Now you notice I'm not using any sevenths, because I think at least at the beginning, enclosing a seventh just kind of muddies the water when it comes to being as clear as possible with our target notes. So that's why I'm choosing to omit these, is in pursuit of clarity for now when you're first starting out with this stuff. So here's what the enclosures sound like over a concert C minor chord. So what you're going to do is you're going to slowly start to put these in all keys, both major and minor. And then you're really going to start to understand what everything is throughout the cycle, right? Now, what you'll notice is that as you go through the keys, obviously a lot of chord tones overlap in different keys. So you're going to start to move a little bit more quickly once you get through a certain number of keys, because you're going to be chromatically surrounding the same notes. So it will increase. The first thing that you're going to notice, though, if you've never done this before, is it is really tough. It's really tough to think about this stuff. It's really tough to start to think about notes in some cases, well, in a lot of cases that are actually outside the key, notes that you haven't even considered yet because technically they're avoid notes, but not when we're pushing towards this target note. You almost don't even hear the approach notes. Your ear only really hears the target note. And that's the beauty of this stuff. That's really the beauty of chromaticism. So now what you're going to do, once you get through all 12 keys, which is going to take you a while, now you're going to go on example 3 on the PDF, and you're going to play through this progression, which is 2 measures of each major 7 chord, and you're going to play these chromatic surrounding notes, these 2-bar exercises in every key with a backing track, all right? Now, the backing track that I'm actually going to play over and the one that I'm going to include for the Patreon members in this episode is actually 4 measures of each major 7 chord, and that's going to give you a little bit of time to think in between each key. It's going to give you 2 measures to kind of prepare for the key that you're going to. And I highly suggest this when you first start working on them. Then you can eventually decrease it to 2 measures each, and you're going to be doing one after another without any chance to think about where you're going, and that's really your true test. But here's what it sounds like around the circle of fourths with all major 7 chords doing these single note chromatic enclosures. Check it out. And on I go right around that circle of fourths with that little bit of break in between when I'm actually playing the exercise and when I'm moving on to the next key. All right, so try to get this stuff done, and then next week we will dive a little bit deeper. If you don't feel like you're ready for this yet, that's fine too. Just file it away under things to do. I know there's a lot of information coming at you every week, and obviously we can't get around to all of it. A lot of this stuff is months and months of work, and I always try to remind you of that so you don't feel bad about getting it done, not getting it done in 1 week. All right, but check this out. If you've got any questions, please send me an email, 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com. Remember, you can get the PDF to this episode and all the others at our Patreon site. Go to our website, click on one of the Patreon banners and jump over there. And remember to get yourself on the mailing list or sign up for Patreon, because if this is stuff that you know you need to work on, we're going to be coming out with our book, The Chromatic Way, on the 20th, and you're going to get a substantial discount from being on that mailing list or being a Patreon member. Okay, that about does it for this week. We will see you next week with a couple of brand new episodes, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye.